Good evening. Welcome back to the Muddy Creek Podcast. Don and I are so happy to have you guys here tonight. I see a lot of people up in the chat. Let me acknowledge some people in chat before we start going. We got an interesting show tonight. Got lots to show you. And, we didn't really script it out. We kind of want to hit on some things, but we're going to go with the flow. It's probably going to be a long show. We're going to be relaxed and we're just going to have a good time with it. And we're going to exchange some ideas and connect the dots. One thing about everybody you've seen on the panels, we have seen what I call a canine cryptid. There's some people out there that find it really hard to wrap their brains around that there are some canine cryptids out there. And, for those of us that have seen them, we've always stood by what we have seen and experienced. And, in the Bigfoot world, it's kind of ironic, but I don't fault anyone. It's kind of hard for people to, even in the Bigfoot world, grasp that there's a canine cryptid out there. So we're going to go through some stories and tonight, and some videos and some audio and some work some artists have done, and we're just going to hit on the subject. And the thing is, in the Bigfoot world, I don't knock people for not, for having a hard time believing it, but it's almost like telling a civilian out there that's never experienced Bigfoot that, there's Bigfoot out there. So, it used to bother me. It don't bother me anymore. I don't take it seriously anymore because it is what it is. And I've always stood by mine since 2017. My story's never changed. I'm okay with people saying it was misidentified because what I saw was on all fours, and that's fine, but I knew enough to know it didn't belong in my environment. So I really don't like the term dogman. I call it canine cryptid. That's just me, but we're just going to have some honest conversations. Might hurt each other's feelings, might not, but it's important to have open dialogue on it. It's important to get out there and get your stories out and have a conversation about this. And we saw some common denominators in this. And let me jump in and acknowledge some people from chat. Sharon, hey, good to see you. Billy, Timmy Johnson, I'm glad you finally got to jump in. One of the world's greatest moderators, Gary. We got Billy Schilling in there. We got Denise going through. Untamed Cabin Life. You guys go check that YouTube channel out. Untamed Cabin Life. Let's see. We got Kevin in the house. Chad, Rusty, Katie. I know we got Lenny. I seen Lenny jump in. Katie G, I'm actually glad you're here. We got Sandra here. Let's see. I'm trying not to miss anyone. We got Michael. Hey, Michael, welcome. We got Jean in the house. I think that is all I see on the board right now. Did I miss? Got Tiffany. Thank you, Tiffany, for stopping in. And that's the first time I've seen Tiffany in chat. Welcome to the family, Tiffany, to the Muddy Creek podcast family. If there's any, we got Patrick. Of course, we got Patrick Noble in the chat. Patrick, I'm trying to make sure I hadn't missed anyone because I hate to miss people. Because I'm very grateful that you jump in and you're supporting the show. Got the Kraken. We all buy you Kraken there. I wonder who that is. Let's see. Okay, we got Levon. Oh, Levon. We got Wing Clan. Hey, buddy, it's good to see you. Think that might Western Bigfoot, Ohio. Go check out his Facebook, y'all. I think Brian's going to jump in later. There's Lenny. Got V in the house. Hey, V Bruton. Did I miss anybody? I don't want to miss anybody. I'm grateful for your time and your family, and we really appreciate you being here. Oh, of course, we got Bud in the house. Bud was actually there when all this happened, and like I said, if you want a link, Bud, we'll drop it to you. Just let me know. Squash and Hollers in the house. Appreciate you being here, and I think that might be it right now. Still strolling through. You guys are talking a lot, ain't you? Lord have mercy. It's like having a out at my house. Okay. Oh, Brian Barber. Guys, go check out Brian Barber, Big Barber Shop. If I got that wrong, please correct it. Great channel. Got Tracy in the house, Mark D. Um, just Kimmy Sunshine, Kimmy effing Sunshine. I just effing love you, Kimmy. We got John in the house, Varex. If I didn't say that right, I slaughter my own name sometimes. I think that's it. Okay. So, Don, is there anything new going on with your life, buddy?
Nothing new. Same old, same old. Got Lyme disease again. So been a little under the weather. Yeah. It's like my third, fourth, maybe fourth time. I had some doxycycline in my house, and I treated myself on one occasion, but I was never positive if it was Lyme.
Wow. So you just got diagnosed, didn't you?
Yeah, last Tuesday.
Oh, so
Yeah, I had it for about 3 weeks before that.
Okay, we're getting feedback. We're getting feedback on.
It's usually on my part. How's that?
Okay.
There we go.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I had the world's worth of audio. One day I'll get it. I'll get it straight.
I want to say hi to the chat though.
Go ahead, Don. It's your show too, buddy. Take your time. Let me see if I see his buddy in there. Don's the love bug. We're like good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, right. The love-hate thing.
So I don't know if most of you have watched Mr. Lopez there. I call him Lopez. I'm going to let him do an introduction. He actually writes poems. He's an author. You design video games too, don't you?
Yeah. Okay, well, someday, hopefully, tabletop role-playing games, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons or, Pathfinder, some people might be used to. But the kind that you sit around with friends and play with dice and pen and paper and maps and all that. Of course, nowadays, a lot of people play online, kind of with using settings like this, actually. You can use internet chat rooms or other kinds of interfaces.
Do I still have an echo?
Sound good to me?
Yeah, it's
Do
off.
I still have an echo?
No, you're good.
So you've got some published material too. Where can they find it at?
Yeah, I actually just dropped the game that we discussed last time. It's been about 25 years. Dungeons and Dragons, they have teams of like 100 people working, but I just have me, so. And of course, I've got playtesters throughout the years as well. But right now, I've got it on Drive-Through RPG, or if you just Google Empyrean RPG, one of the Drive-Through RPG links will pop right up, and the system's out. I'm actually, excitingly, this whole week, I've been putting the finishing touches on the first adventure module. It's an entire arc from low level to epic levels, kind of in 3 chunks. So technically, you could play them separately, but really, it's one big story. And this first book is actually just one of 4 books leading all the way to eventually godhood or beyond.
Oh, that's awesome. So I do have headphones, but I'm missing a piece to it, guys. So they're not working. I do have some beats. I'll try to hit it Bluetooth. Pat, while I do that, you want to give a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to jump on to some audio one of my friends gave me permission to use. I'll be right back, guys.
Okay. Well, I'm Pat Harrison, Blue-Eyed Northern. I am Joe Parker's better half. And I know quite a few of the people in the chat. We live in northwest central Louisiana. I'm from Ohio, just outside Cincinnati. We're both retired. And what's that?
Nothing. When you said you were from Ohio, I said I'm sorry.
Oh, you're sorry. Me too. Me too. Half the time.
No,
Me
I'm
too.
joking.
You're sorry. Yes.
Do you live
Yes.
do you live in more of a city area or a rural, like out on the bayou? You know, what's
Oh.
your kind of environment like?
Oh. Okay. Let me tell you. We are right on the Cane River. Here in Louisiana. We are on the outskirts of a small southern town.
Oh no,
Very historical.
did she pause for you as well?
What was that?
What's that?
Oh, it froze for me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't
No,
know if
we
it froze
are we
for
are
all of
on
us.
no,
Oh,
we
wow.
are we are in a small southern town here. Actually, they made Steel Magnolias here, the movie.
Oh,
When Joe was out fishing just a little while ago, right under the dock was a gator. It shook him up a little bit. It come out from underneath the dock at him when he casted. So it was probably about 6 foot. He's
oh wow,
okay though. Other
boy.
than that, that's kind of it. It's hot here, and we like to travel and camp and visit with a lot of the folks in the chat that I spent last weekend with.
Have you been to the Nacogdoches Meat Pie Kitchen before?
It's right down the street from me.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I was there on a Duke University thing in my youth, and oh my God, I must have eaten there every other day.
So you know you know that we are a small town. We are in the smallest. We are in the
Nacogdoches, right? Right.
oldest city in the Louisiana Purchase. We are
Huh.
called Natchitoches.
Oh, that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry.
Nacogdoches is in Texas. We
My
are
poor
in
Texas name,
Louisiana.
yeah. My poor Texas pronunciation of it. I mean, I
So
don't live
did
in
you?
Texas anymore, but off and on my whole life, I'm from that region, the very tiny tip of Texas, way down, in the valley as we call it.
Mhm.
Sorry, Pat. Did you say it's a lot of swamps around there?
Yes, actually. Oh yeah.
You're
Actually, I
down
go out
south.
into the
Okay.
swamps. I actually
Okay.
will go out into the swamps a lot of times. We walk out there and put
Okay.
recorders out and hang out.
I wish
Okay,
there
guys.
was some willow wisps out there, and they say it's just swamp gas, and other people say, there's some dark places out in the country that the Fae still live.
Maybe.
Yeah, those swamps are huge out there, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yes. Actually, we do go out and we do go out and do some recording, and we've heard quite a bit coming from the swamps, and I've had some experiences out there as well.
Oh,
Hmm.
is the legend of the Skunk Ape? Does it travel all the way from Florida all the way to Louisiana?
No, it's the Rougarou.
Oh, okay. Different name. Does it also stink?
That's what they say. I haven't ever smelt anything. And we have the Palangua, which is half alligator and half man.
Oh, wow, that sounds cool.
Mhm.
There's if you recall, that classic book we all love that now has been somewhat sanitized, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. There's that amazing story in there, I think, called The Alligator, that takes place, I think, in Louisiana about the father and the half alligator man, and it's a really good tale.
It's the Palangua.
Do you know where that Palingua story originated?
It's
Was that
probably French.
okay?
Actually, yeah, a lot. You have your French Cajun here, so and your Creole, and we are in a French city. Actually, we have a fort where the French settled. Actually, in my little town, the fort right in the middle of the city.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know if it came from Native American or if it was passed down.
Possibly. You've got the Caddo and all of that here, and the Nacogdoches Indians as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
So we're going to have a little bit of an echo until I play this audio from one of my friends in North Carolina. Then I'll try, while you guys are talking, I'll try to do the Bluetooth hookup. So Lopez, well, let me go to this. Pat, you were not a believer in dogman. You may be open-minded about it, but what was your stand before this?
I basically, no, I really didn't believe in dogman. I just pretty much thought it was, or any cryptids other than the Sasquatch Bigfoot itself. I just figured maybe it was probably another species, just like you have the skunk ape, or we have the Ohio grassman, the gugwe, and all different gugwe, and all that, all of those. I just assumed it was that. I never ever believed in dogman, but I have since changed my mind.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that's exactly what I thought. It was misidentification.
Yes.
You know, until you see one. You know.
Well,
yes.
Well, I agree with Jean. She's here to tell you seeing is believing. You know what? I want to kick off with an audio. He lives right down the road from us. He gave me permission to use this, and also Sibylla helped him do some animation and some art. And we'll share his what she was able to create for him. I'm going to let you say this or hear this, and the reason why this is important is it kind of ties into what Lopez is about to go into, and it was actually a good fit for tonight's show. And you guys, if you see a gray cat jumping in, that's Shawnee. She's been inside since she's had surgery, so she was a sick kitten, so we brought her in, and she's still in the house, and she has no manners. So I have Shawnee and Swamp Kitty. Shawnee is the gray one. Swamp Kitty is the black one, the mascot of the show. So Shawnee is the one that just had the ear surgery. She had a quarter-sized polyp removed off her ear, and she's sickly, so we decided to bring her in so she'd have a longer, healthier life. So anyway, if you see them pop in, Shawnee doesn't have manners, and Swamp Kitty, she just don't give a shit. She's going to crash the show, but she is the mascot, so we're just going to roll with it. So
that's why your background was what it is. the matching when we first logged in.
Yes, that is Swamp Kitty. She was actually found on the Muddy Creek, so that's one of the reasons I changed the show's name to Muddy Creek. The other reason was it was easier for people to come on to tell their story instead of the Not So Perfect Bigfoot show. It's easier to come on the Muddy Creek podcast than the Not So Perfect, especially when you've had a serious encounter that's really affected you. But yeah, Swamp Kitty's the queen of the show. So we're going to roll into Corey Poole. Corey Poole's from North Carolina. He lives right down the road from us, maybe 20 minutes out. His encounter was around the same time, Lopez, that you had yours. And it's very important that you hear and see what he has to offer. He did give me permission. He may be listening tonight. He said if I didn't get something straight, he would text me, and, you know, I could make the correction. So would love to have him on the show, but his line of work right now, I really understand why he's not kind of hesitant about going on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play this. I have to play it off my computer because I couldn't get it downloaded to the show. I do have some other cool stuff downloaded, so let me get this out here and play this. And once I start this, let me know if you guys can hear this. Are you ready? Okay. And Lopez, I really think this is gonna, if you hear an echo, you guys tell me in chat. Lopez, I really want you to brings some validation to you, because this is around the same time you had your encounter in the same area.
The story that you're about to hear is true, based on an actual event. It's not made up, it's not a campfire story, and it's not a hoax. In the summer of 1990, while I was on patrol as a deputy sheriff in northeastern Harnett County, in the area of Ball Road between North Carolina Highway 42 and Cokesbury Road, I encountered 3 creatures that to this day I do not know what they were. It was about 3 a.m., it was dark, and it was foggy. I encountered what I thought initially were people fighting in the road. 2 figures in the middle of the road, with a third off to the right in the ditch. As I got closer, I realized that, in fact, it wasn't people at all. Eyes were glowing, peering back at me. This area is close to Raven Rock State Park, Sharon Harris Nuclear Power Plant, and Sharon Harris Lake. Hundreds of acres of dense forest inhabited by all types of wildlife. I spent my entire life growing up in this area. I know the woods, and I know the animals that inhabit these woods. This is a rural section of the county in which there were very few houses. This area is inhabited by several different species of animals, all of which that I think that I'm very familiar with. We have deer, we have bear, raccoons, possums, and a great number of other species. In the mid-90s, a gentleman by the last name of Jernigan was riding his boat up the Cape Fear River. He was in the company of several other people. They encountered a large creature in the water beside his boat. Startled, they shot the animal 19 times, pulling it up into the boat and taking it to the shoreline. They discovered that it was a large rodent from South America. It was almost as large as the boat. Nobody probably would have believed them had they not seen it with their own eyes. It made the local newspaper, and everybody realized his story was true. Likewise, several years ago, down on the Wilmington section of the North Carolina coast, people's livestock were being killed and mutilated. People felt as if they were being stalked. Creatures were making loud, growling noises, and their eyes also were piercing at night. The animals were known to eat people's pit bulls, chickens, and other farm animals. It was later discovered that an animal rescue could not afford to feed the lions that they had in captivity. They released the lions into the swamps, and that's when the unbelievable stories began. Just like there's a logical explanation in both of those cases, I'm sure that there's a logical explanation for what I've seen. There's 3 animal rescues in the area where I live, and there's a variety of animals in captivity at those animal rescues, including exotic animals that are not from this area. That includes gorillas, lions, bears, and other things that are not from here. One of the creatures was standing in the middle of the road on 2 feet. It held the other creature above his head, and it was body slamming him back and forth from the ground back to the air, holding him over his head, slamming him into the ground, and then back over his head. The third creature that I saw was in the ditch, almost as if it were hunkered down on all fours and afraid to move. I stepped out of my car to take a closer look because I couldn't believe with my eyes what I was seeing, and I really wasn't sure what I was seeing. As I stepped out of the vehicle, the creature that was holding the other creature over his head threw him to the ground and began to walk towards me with his hands moving forward in motion. I wasn't afraid. I didn't feel like my life was in jeopardy. I didn't draw my weapon. I just got back in my vehicle, put it in reverse, and backed out. As I got to the crest of the hill, I began to wonder what it was that I saw. I decided I would turn around and go back to investigate further. When I got back down to the bottom of the hill, all 3 creatures were gone, and I've never seen anything like it since. Some people say that these were dogmen. I'm not sure if they were dogmen or something else. At the point in time that this occurred, there was no such thing as the internet. There was no such thing as computers. There was no such thing as cell phones. There was very little that I could do to research at the time what it was that I saw. I told very few people about my story initially and what I had seen. When I did start telling people years later, it was sort of like a campfire story to them. And every time we got together with friends, they'd all want to hear the story about the creatures that I'd seen. Everybody would get a good laugh out of it, and it was a fun story to tell. However, It wasn't just a campfire story, and it wasn't just a story that I told. It was an actual event that occurred. I told the story when I was 22 years old, and I've been telling the same story ever since, and I'm almost 50 now.
So Lopez, how was that?
It's definitely. I mean, I didn't get to hear the description of the third creature very well. But did he say it was a pig or a boar?
He said they were dogman type, or
The third one, though. The third. He
yeah,
said it was down. Oh, it was also a dog man. Huh.
So he was the deputy sheriff on duty when that happened, and that happened in the 1990s.
I mean, I tend to be a pretty good judge of, I don't want to say truthfulness, but I usually can. I'm real. My bullshit detector is real good, and there's something just about the way that he describes things that makes me think that he really did see something. He did say he's the stories has made its rounds. Maybe it's been a little embellished, but honestly, just the way he says it really gives me a sense that he's not trying to hoodwink anybody or pull one over as a big fishtail or anything.
And you got to think that he stood by his story all of those years, but he had that encounter around the same time you had yours.
Yeah, you said it was in the same year, right?
Well,
Like that around
in the early 1990s.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, here comes Shoni again. She didn't learn her lesson with the water bottle. For those that don't know, can you go in to your experience, because yours was just outside of Fort Bragg?
Hold on. Did that guy ever mention a tail in his story?
Let me show you what they helped him.
Sorry, Lopez.
No, that's a good question. Because some people do distinguish between what some would call a werewolf versus a dogman. And dogmen, as far as I know, generally have either short tails or no tails. Whereas, you usually hear, a typical werewolf sighting in most stories or in most accounts tend to have some kind of tail, like a wolf, a longer, more pronounced one.
Now, this was a recreation. I think Sabilla helped them recreate this, what you're seeing on the screen. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's an amazing rendition of what, very similar to what I would describe as, a dogman, and not, like a typical werewolf or something like that, or a Bigfoot or something like that. That's, to me at least, is a very accurate representation of, very close to what I would, or I have recalled seeing.
Yeah. Let me find this one. This is always another one that was kind of like.
I think the one I saw had a longer snout. I remember seeing a pointy snout on it.
Yeah, mine was definitely more pointy rather than broad.
Right.
So, Lopez, let's go into your experience, because then I want to jump on the Dons. Then we want to get into Pat's, what Pat captured. So you were around the outskirts of Fort Bragg, right off the Cape Fear River, which is right off of where I had mine 20 years after yours. Can you kind of set the picture for us about what the terrain was like, what the weather was like, and kind of what brought you to that area and what it was like living there?
Yeah, at the time, it was, we didn't want to live on base. I remember my stepdad wanted to have like a, more normal life out, kind of away from the base. So there wasn't really, I remember there was a couple of like, kind of smaller cities around, but again, we didn't want to really live in that kind of setting. So we found a small, it was kind of way out in the country. There was kind of like this little street right on the edge of a couple of big woods. And the one street had like 8 houses on it. So it was very kind of, very rural. I mean, but the thing is, the houses were kind of close to each other. They weren't, I mean, I would say the entire street up until you got into the deep part of the woods, where the woods really started, from the entrance of like kind of the off road from the highway, was maybe not longer than 2 miles at the most. So you could easily walk between houses, and all the every family there had kids, so, and many of them were military. Although the houses didn't look kind of like those typical ones you see on the base, they were like normal houses. And yeah, it was very mid to early summer. The weather was warm, crisp, although we did get a lot of deluges. There was a lot of big rainstorms. And like I said, my experience was particularly during a very, very heavy rainstorm. I mean, it was even as a child, I remember it being like one of the biggest rainstorms I can remember. And that's why it was always something that just seemed weird, because even if I hadn't had that encounter that night, I would have remembered the rainstorm because it was so violent and overwhelming, and it would lasted like from the early, before dinner is when like the thunder really started and the rain picked up, and it must have gone on, literally like heavy rain all night, until beyond the dawn. It was just like almost like a flooding kind of moment if the ground maybe wasn't at an angle or something.
So you were in your room for those that haven't heard about it, tell them what you were doing, how it affected you, what it looked like, and because the day before that you were in the same woods where it come out of.
Yeah, I mean, every day we play in the woods. I mean, I did have my video games and stuff in the living room, but I would always go. My mom didn't have custody of me; it was my father who did. So I would go visit her. So I would mostly spend my time. When you go to visit the other parent, you don't always have all your stuff. So I'd have like my Game Boy, maybe like one game or something. So really, most of the time, I ended up spending time with the other kids. Running around in the woods and picking blackberries and getting dirty and going to each of those big old, we had some of those big swimming pool above ground things. Oh, speaking of which, it was funny because I remembered something that there was one of our neighbors that had one of those backdoor pools, and I remember that when they would go out of town, we would go like sneak into their backyard and stuff. Well, one time when it was just me and the son that had that pool, I asked him, it was something like in the evening or something. I was like, "Hey, let's go swimming in the middle of the night." I was like, I'll go like leave my room, I'll sneak out at like 10 or 11 and I'll come meet you and we'll go swimming at night or whatever. And then he was like adamantly against it. And I kept like pushing him, why or something. And he was like, "Oh, it's real creepy out there out by the woods at night." He's like, "I always feel like I'm being watched. I hear things, whatever." And I was like, even all these years, I've never really thought back about that conversation, but I wonder if maybe he saw something at some point, or at least if something got his hackles up or his intuition, even as a child, because he did not want to go out like after 10 p.m. in his backyard alone. Because, like I said, on the backs of all the houses literally rested on a giant, super dense forest that goes on for like miles. When you go out there, you can weave and wind through the forest. There's these giant fields. I remember of kind of like grass that kind of looked like wheat, but it was only like, up to like our knees. And in the middle of these fields, there was like these huge, like piles, these like pyramid, like not literal pyramids, but like a rough shape of like a triangular cone, these giant, giant piles of granite and marble, and other buildings, I guess but mostly granite. And I just remember it being like, I got to the top of one and I looked and I could see the whole rest of the field and all these giant piles, of granite and stone and marble or whatever, like out there, And these fields just out, there was no roads leading there. There was no, it kind of reminds me of something I saw when I was in Connecticut as a kid. My step parents, they had I guess they owned some kind of lumber company, not like a big one, but like, kind of like one of the ones where you have like a team of 20 guys, at the most, and they would go harvest up in New Hampshire. But when we were up there, they had their house in Connecticut where they owned a huge amount of woods. I mean, just like miles of it. And me and my sister were playing back there. And we went, like, one time we went just like farther before we'd ever gone before into these dark woods. And we came across the weirdest thing. Okay, imagine this. You're going in this deep, dark woods. Ain't nobody, no houses. No, I mean, this is nothing. There's nothing around for miles. But in the middle of this forest, you come across a swimming pool. Covered in algae on the edges, and like a normal swimming pool, like you'd see at an old motel.
That is so creepy.
It was so fucking creepy. Like, I kind of like, we got close, but I didn't, I mean, I want to fall into a dirty fucking pool in the middle. I mean, the water was black. And it was just, I remember just like, it was an overflowing algae and mold all over everything. And I was just like, what is this doing out here? And I remember I went back and I tried to ask my grandparents about it. And they said, I don't know. They just played dumb or something. I don't know. But it has always creeped me out to this day. Like, who made that, or why is that there? Because it was like a professional fucking pool. It wasn't like, I don't know, as a drainage tank or something like built in for something like that. I know what a pool is like. I spent a lot of time when I was a kid.
There's something about granite. There's something about granite and cryptids. I don't know what it is.
Resonance, vibration,
it absorbs energy. That's what I've heard. But so you were in North Carolina. Now, you were right off the Cape Fear River. You guys actually found a body on the Cape Fear River, so that had to be traumatic.
Yeah, like I said, it was a river right next to where we used to all. I mean, literally, it was maybe about half a mile from the house at the edge of those woods. You go maybe about 2 blocks in, you could take a left or a right. Because other than that, there's a wall of trees that were so tight you couldn't even really walk through them. So you had to go left or right once you get about, a few blocks past my house. Because I was at the very end of the thing, at the end of that street. The thing is that on the other side of the street, there was no house at the end. There was an odd number of houses. So I was really surrounded on 3 sides there by forest. I had the lonely little house at the end of the lane, so it was especially scary for me because, when you're a kid and you're just thinking, you don't really consciously think about like how close in proximity are all the people that could save me if I need it, or how close in proximity are all the adults within like 5 city blocks of me or something. But when you look back at like that, you're like, why did I feel so threatened? And it's like sometimes your environment can really shape the way you see the world, even as a kid. You subconsciously pick up on those, like, I'm vulnerable from this position.
Yeah. So it had stormed that night. You were in your room. Can you go into the sighting?
Yeah. It was, like I said, in the later part of the evening, it had been storming for a little while, raining, and I think I had hit a part on my game. I remember that I just got stuck in, and so I was like, "Oh, I'll just go do a little writing in my room or whatever." And then I got bored with that. I was like, probably designing a dungeon or some monster or something. And then I remember I read a book for a little while, and then the lighting kept freaking me out because it would land 100 yards away. And, even that 100 yards away, the thunder sounds like it's clapping your front door open, So it just, it kept taking me out of the book, But one time I remember looking up and I could see the light flash on the tree line. and there was nothing there. Just the normal view out my window. They have my little desk right there and whatever. So I'm like, oh, I'm just sitting there with my book, looking out the window, enjoying the rain, because I've always been a big fan of the rain. I'm a huge storm lover. Thunderstorms, rainstorms, I love it all. Nothing makes me happier. And I'm looking out there, and again the light hits. Nothing's going on. And then I remember seeing the flash again, and there was something there. You could see a form outlined, like something had moved closer, or moved like out from behind a tree, or something. But of course, there's layers of rain and wind and darkness, of course. So it's muddy at this point. I don't know what I'm looking at, and I think that kind of scared me. It didn't scare me more because obviously the company, the eye contact in the moment, it was more scary. But sometimes when you just don't know what you're looking at, that kind of evokes a different kind of fear. More like that fear of the unknown, or the fear of what the fuck is that. And then all of a sudden, when I see this thing, looks like much larger than a dog, you would normally think of that height. It was at least maybe 3.5, 4 feet tall on all fours. So already it was gigantic, and looking back, I mean, that's like a timber wolf or a dire wolf, like the ones they're bringing back, I don't know size of gray wolves exactly versus timber wolves, but regardless, this thing looked, I mean, huge. And I look out the window every day, so I know the height of the trees, and my fence was right there too. We had a wire chain link fence that you could see through, but I also had a second reference for the height. So already I'm like, okay, this thing's already like its back, the top of its back is already higher than my little 3.5-foot fence. And then of course by the tree line, this thing puts its paws on the tree and stands up. And by then it's literally like double, or maybe even 2.5 times what the height of that little short 3.5-foot wire fence was. So, yeah, definitely. But anyways, once it came closer to view and it stood up, that's when it made eye contact with me, and I could tell that it saw me and I saw it, and it just like your whole everything just disassociates and goes cold. It like you're like someone dumped a bucket of water or a bucket of ice in your stomach. I honestly, it was like time froze for a moment. I mean, it feels like it was 5 minutes, but it was probably no more than 15 seconds or 10 seconds. And it's almost like I could hear it snarl. Its eyes were so filled with hate. That's the number one thing I remember out of everything. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen like The Never-Ending Story. I'm sure you have. Do you remember the encounter with Gamork, the servant of the Nothing, the wolf?
Mm-hmm.
In the when he's looking at you in the cave, and his eyes are just glowing with that seething hatred, and you just see that bestial face, that inhuman look. There's until you see it, you just you're always just part of a special club now.
I watched, well, forgive me if I don't remember, because I watched mostly war movies growing up. I always thought I was reincarnated from the Vietnam area. But one thing about hearing your story, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm got a one-track mind. When you were talking about how big it was on all fours, I know I was doing an interview one time, and I was just trying to convey that it was not a wolf, it was not a dog, it was something other that should not be in your environment. And it's just so hard to describe, because it's not a wolf, it's not a dog, but it is too big, but it's not so overly massive on all fours that like you would see in the typical thumbnail. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been, even as a kid, I've been hunting with my dad, with my uncle, my grandpa. I've seen lots of creatures in the wild, from afar and up close. From mountain lions to bears, brown and black. I've seen wolves, coyotes, all kinds of stuff like that. And this was different. And that's why I hate when people are always like, "Oh, it was a bear with mange, or it was a mutated wolf or something." I'm like, something's different when you see it. When you're used to seeing these animals either as a hunter or going to the zoo, or even if you just watch a lot of damn Discovery Channel, you know you, you know what a gorilla is versus a Bigfoot. If you see one, you would know the difference. Like, I know the brain gets a little crazy in certain moments when adrenaline's running, but I don't think it's. I've been in many life or death situations, and I've never had my brain hallucinate a different visual form of something from another without like some heavy psychedelics being part of the situation.
When you were in your bedroom, there come a point when you realized that it knew you were watching.
Yeah, the eye contact. Like I said, it just. I don't know if it had like stalked us before, or it like stalked all the houses in my neighborhood. Like I said, there was only like 7 houses. Mine was on the very end of the block, but I guarantee, I mean, if that thing was prowling around my backyard at the edge of this forest, you and all these other people had their backs to their houses in the forest. I mean, I wouldn't have left my dog outside at night. Someone's Chihuahua is going to end up being a midnight snack. It just. Uh, and now looking back, the only 3 dogs on the block. One of them was a boxer Rottweiler mix, can handle itself, right? That was our dog. His name was Poochie. And there was one of the mid houses, about 3 houses down, was larger than any of the other houses width-wise. Like, it was a 1-story house, but it was like sprawling. So it was about twice the width of all the other houses. And they had 2 giant Great Danes, huge ones. And they let them just run all over. They would just run up and down the street and run in the backyard. And everyone knew them. They were friendly giants. But if you think about it, the only outdoor pets in that entire street, everyone had either had indoor cats, and any of the dogs that were small were always inside. The only 3 dogs allowed to like run around were those 3 big dogs.
Wow.
Lopez, you were on the first floor. You lived in a 1-level house.
Yeah, this one was. It looked kind of like a 2-story house from the outdoors, but that was just an attic that was like really angular. But yeah, it was actually a 1-story house with like kind of vaulted ceilings in the main 3 rooms, and then the bedroom kind of had smaller ceilings.
Okay, how many windows could you see the wood line all around your house from that spot you were sitting?
So mine actually saw it at an angle. I could see kind of the tree line that was between our 2 houses, because like, say you're walking into the house from the front, you would walk through the living room. To the right is the kitchen, and then a patio doors leading out to a deck. You keep walking forward, and then to the left was my room. And then you keep going down the hallway, and to the left at the end of the hallway was my sister's room, which comprised the back corner of the house. She had 2 windows, one facing the tree line between the houses and one facing the backyard, where we had a pond, and then this kind of a big square fence that was at about waist height, and then the woods, the darkness beyond. And then my parents, if you took a right at the end of the hallway, their bedroom was there, and they had 2 glass patio doors facing the back, and 1 side door leading also to that dock, or not a dock, but like a deck, I guess, on the right hand side as well.
What I'm trying to get to is, of all the wood line on the 3 sides of your house, is this the only spot that you would have seen him at? Does it seem like he did it on purpose for you to see him?
Honestly, I wonder if he was looking for me or my sister. Because remember, she had the back bedroom and she had 2 windows. So this peeper could have been, this dog man could have been like, what if he had been watching her for like weeks or months or something, ready for when the little lamb is left alone, and the thing is that she lived there. I was a guest. I would go visit my mom for like a month during the summer, but there were a lot of times she was alone by herself. And so looking back on this, I get scared, like what could have happened to her,
Right.
So it just, I don't know if it was, like I said, I don't know if it was looking for me or for my sister, but I just know that space between the house, the way it was facing towards our house from the tree line that was horizontally, or I guess vertically, behind the houses, but it was facing this direction diagonally towards us. So again, it was either me or my sister, because if it was the parents, it would have been on the other side or directly across the backyard or something like that. But both of us had that diagonal visage right there. Literally, it was maybe distance-wise, I would say no more than 150 feet diagonally. About that.
It seems strange for him to go to the spot that you would see him, a cryptid that needs to stay hidden. So to me, it just seems intentional that he wanted you to see him, just so he could put that fear into you.
No, I think that's true, because if it wanted to stay hidden, why would it come out from behind a tree? Why would it approach the tree line in the first place? Clearly this thing has great vision at night in the dark. It could watch us all night if it wanted to behind that tree. But it chose to not only come out, it chose to approach the tree line and stop there. It chose to stand up and to look at me. So yeah, I think you're definitely right on that. I mean, it was clearly attempting.
You could have got close to their area when you go out in the woods. They may be trying to keep you out of there.
Oh, maybe like an intimidation or like a warning or something. Right. I never thought about that. I was just, in my head, I'm just thinking, this thing's hungry and it wants, like, that's everything in my head just feels like.
And you're allowed,
right.
and you are allowed to have that intimidation. You really are, because other people's experience are not going to be the same as yours, and you're allowed to feel the way you feel about it. But Jean did pose a question. She says, how do you know that he was a creeper? And if he wanted her, he would have gotten her. And if she was alone, how do you know he wasn't there to protect her? That's her view of her experiences with them. Your experience does not have to be the same as hers. That's why we have conversations. But it's actually a really good question. Hindsight, do you feel that way?
The third part of her question, I would say, I could definitely tell it wasn't a protective force because of just the amount of malice and hatred that you could feel from it. When I hear people talk about werewolf encounters or Bigfoot encounters, they never mention the hatred or the bloodlust or just the absolute evil that it radiates. Whereas this thing, when you looked at, like I said, its face was not like a wolf. It was more like a dog and a very long canine snout. Yeah, the closest thing, I mean, would maybe be like if you put different hair and coloration on almost like a German Shepherd face or something, it was like that. And, I believe that maybe, if werewolves exist, maybe, I mean, people talk about, we actually chatted, remember, if you last time, a little bit about, skinwalkers or things like that. And, maybe some were creatures are good, benevolent protectors or stewards of nature, or maybe even called to protect innocent children during their ages of, formative development. Like if you're, and especially fragile soul, maybe that's something that nature calls to protect you. That is possible. I mean, I would never discount such ideas, but this specific creature that I saw, I know was evil. There is no doubt in my mind. Evil.
And you know, you're allowed to feel that. And that's why I'm glad Gene asked that questions, because I think
Yes.
even the people that have had different opinions and have different opinions about them, I think it's really important for us to have those conversations without, you know, the fights and the bickering and the drama as you see in the community sometimes. And yes, I've been a part about that because, you know, we all know I don't have a filter on throwing my opinion out there. But it's good that we have that. You know, one of the things about I have always said about mine, and this also goes to Pat, I felt like it knew I was there. It knew my scent. My scent, I had scent pools all up and down that. My scent was in that cul-de-sac all weekend or all week. And I felt like I was being watched. It knew I was there, but it chose to cross the road in front of me. And the one thing about Pat, at any time, it could have just dropped down on all fours and hid. But it was almost like at first it was, do they see me? And we'll go into that video in just a minute. We'll go, but then it's almost like it squared when they realized that something was going on. They stopped the truck and they're focused in that area. It's almost like it squared off with them.
It did.
Like you don't want to go there. Is that how you feel? Well, let's get into Pat. I'm not skipping you, Don. I'm sorry. Don, go into yours right quick because I want to get your encounter out there. I really want to hit this footage that Pat has, but I'm sorry, Lopez, because I mean we're going to have a round table, but I kind of wanted to touch on everybody's story.
Yeah, no, please do. I've been chatting for a while.
I agree, Gene. If you see them, they want you to see. I agree with that. I felt
Yes,
like what went in the road in front of me wanted me to see it. Hey, Amanda, welcome to the Muddy Creek podcast family. Nice to have you.
Did you want me?
I do want to say I saw somebody in the chat said, you know, if they want you, they're going to get you, you know, and nothing will stop them. And I believe that's true too, you know, but maybe sometimes attracting, you know, the wrong attention or kidnapping or eating the wrong person, you know, causes things like witch hunts and people to pay attention. And, you know, I think these creatures, if they've existed for this long in secret, they know, you know, sometimes it takes people that won't go, you know, like the guy we found in the river, you know, I mean, that was just a bum, the homeless guy, and nobody would miss him. Nobody nobody came to collect that body, you know, other than the cops, you know, but no family was crying or anything. So I think sometimes they know, you know, it's one thing to steal, you know, to go kill a homeless guy as a cryptid. It's another thing to go kidnap someone's daughter, you know, their only daughter, you know.
But when you seen the homeless man that later found out he was homeless in the river, his innards were ripped out of him, or they were missing, and literally you could tell that part of him was missing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was torn open, but you know, he was also swollen and covered in those river moccasins, which they don't attack in packs. You know, they're not like a pack of wild coyotes. You know, they're snakes. They're individual creatures. So that's something that was real weird about that whole case too. When they, you know, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Well, let me just go ahead and touch on. Sorry, Don, but you said it yourself. Right. What holds them back from going in a full-blown attack? I'm going to show you what happens when they do. This was also in North Carolina. This was, I want to say, in 1940s. The beast of Bladenboro was a cat-like / dog-like creature. This is the actual newspaper article. And I always said in our area that the cryptids that Richard and I used to go out and investigate, try to get evidence on. They're not very vocal. And one of the things that I kind of pieced together about it is if you were hunted down and you were seeing what we do as people when you upset us, and basically what they did when the Beast of Bladenboro was out killing animals and livestock, they, you know, we do what rednecks do. We went to the woods and we killed everything that, you know, we got our eyes on. And I always told people, you know, in the Robson County area, I felt like the cryptid that me and Richard got on that video that time, that they have learned over time not to be vocal. And that's how they have learned to live among us, because we couldn't understand, you know, why we didn't get vocals like other places, but we had some of the best activity. And I know it was our activity and our experience, but it was solid, you know, activity. It's because during the Beast of Bladenboro, they went to the woods and they hunted down anything that resembled a cat, a large cat, or a wolf. I mean, just slaughtered everything. So that fits in exactly what you were saying. So I just wanted to put that up, and you hit it right on the nail's head. You didn't know I had that, but it's almost like something is holding them back. You know, something. The aggressive ones and the ones that you really feel like a evil presence about. It's, you know, they know. And like Jean said, Jean hasn't had a negative experience, and I'm going to respect that, you know. And but there is a possibility of why they don't come after. But you hit the nail on the head, so I had to throw that out there. Don, go into because yours wasn't aggressive, was it?
No, not at all. Me and my buddy were fishing, my roommate, and after the sun was going down, and I wanted to hang out there because there was a good area right across the lake. There's a little pinch point, and it's probably 200 feet to the other side of the lake, and there's a little beach there. And I just wanted to hang out to see what came down to get water at night. So after we were fishing, we sat behind a rock right on the edge of the lake. And we were just hanging out talking, and it had gotten dark. It was probably an hour past twilight. And while we were talking, I could hear a grunting sound. And we couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And it was traveling over the water. So we could hear it pretty clear. And I stand up and I look over.
Like a pig, or like a bear sniffing for food, or what kind of grunting? If you don't mind,
I'll tell you in a sec. When I stood up, I could see a big black mass on the other side in that little beach area, and it was lapping water. Now, if you can imagine a dog lipping, you know, it goes.
Yeah.
That's what we were hearing, but we weren't hearing all of it. I was just hearing the grunt, like what sounded like a grunt. So now I realize something's drinking water right there, and I can hear it. So,
shit.
Yeah, and it's 200 plus feet, 225 feet away from us, and I can see the mass because of the light-colored sand behind it. And my roommate looked at it, and I said, "All right, get ready to run." I said, "I'm going to whistle." So I whistled, and this thing stood up. And when it stood up, I realized it wasn't a Bigfoot. This thing took off so fast to our left. And what I didn't see, and neither did my roommate, about 50 feet down the beach was another one.
Oh.
And so the one we're looking at takes off to our left. And in 3 steps, it was 150 feet. And he was into the woods in 3 steps. I went back and I saw all the steps. They were in the water, about in 3 or 4 inches of water. But he only took 3 steps to go about 150 feet. And it moved so fast that right then I knew this isn't normal. It didn't run like a Sasquatch. It reminded me of a raptor. Yeah, it did. It had its hand.
That fast.
Well, it had when he ran, he held his hands out front, this creature. And I could see the head, and I could see the snout, I could see the ears, and to me it looked like a raptor. Like a small raptor running. Yeah, with the little hands. I don't think the hands were little. I think he had them tucked in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, think about it. If you're moving that quickly, aerodynamics.
Right.
And why
yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I've heard it before, but now I know what they're talking about because I saw it. So after it took off, the other one crashed through the woods. They're both crashing up the woods and going up a hill, and they're talking back and forth. Back and forth. They're talking like dogs talking. And right now I'm confused. Like me and my roommate are just frozen in spot and just listening. And they crashed all the way up the hill. And then when they got up the hill, they started howling right directly at us. And it was the craziest. I mean, you could compare it to a wolf howl, but it was off the chain. It was nuts. And right then, that's when I turned to my roommate and said, we got to go right now. We're at, because right then I realized this was not a Sasquatch. So we left. We were on bicycles. We had a 2-mile dirt road to ride out of. Oh, yeah. So
yeah, you were hoping they weren't at your back, I'm sure.
Right. And I don't live far from this lake, and they could just come to that spot and scent me and know exactly where I live. I don't live far from there.
Yeah, we all know any kind of creature with canine descent is going to have a nose like a bloodhound, you know?
Right. And so that was the end of that. And then a year later, the same weekend, a year later, all these people are swimming. It's a hot day. Me and my roommate we walk way around this lake, and because we want to get away from all the people. And me and him are fishing for about 2 hours, and we didn't catch anything in this area. So he left to go back to where all the people were, and I stayed there. And within 10 minutes, I start hearing this tapping behind me. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, tap, tap. And in my head, I'm going, that's not a woodpecker. It sounds like something tapping a log. And I blew it off for a half an hour. It went on for 2 hours. Every time I turn around, it would stop and it would move. He was like to my left, to my right. So when he got to my left, after about 2 hours of this, I held up my camera like I was taking a picture of the lake, but I had it on a selfie, and I took pictures over my shoulder. And in all 3 pictures, you can see something that looks like a dog, bright eyes. It looked like he had some white on his throat, but the head was going up and down, and it was the only thing moving in all 3 pictures. And I did like a 3-shot burst. So nothing else moved except this one thing. And when I went and checked out where this one thing was, the trail that goes around the lake has a dip in it. And he was standing in the dip about head high looking at me. But then he would pop up, pop down. But the eyes never changed, and that white spot on his neck never changed. And I didn't realize what it was. I had no idea what was messing with me out there. Now, this area, I forage mushrooms. Anything that lives out there knows me. I always wear the same hat out there. And
Hippie Don.
What's that?
Hippie Don. Hippie Don has arrived.
So it wasn't until I got home, though, when I looked at the pictures and really looked at them close, that I realized that it could have been those creatures again. But with the first sighting, I talked about it on a podcast. And within 3 days, I had so much activity out in this area. It was nuts. Helicopters coming in at night.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, all the alphabet groups there.
I was going to say, weird things seem to attract that. I've had friends in Washington State, and they, even when we were out, I lived out in Vegas, whenever there's weird stuff going on, they're going to show up at some point.
Yeah, it's I mean, I had been talking about Bigfoot on this podcast, never had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I talk about this, I never said what I saw on the podcast because the guy that has the podcast doesn't believe in in dogman. So I just told him what we heard, and whoever was watching that podcast came down. They had a Fed sitting in front of my house, and they had the helicopters coming in at night, and then it took about October 17th, I think, was the first day they were here. And December 3rd, they left. And when the day before they left, they brought in 2 troop carriers that landed probably 5 to 6 miles from where I am. And they stayed overnight, and early in the morning, they took off and left. Now, a couple months later, I'm at the local store. I mean, I live in really urban area, rural area, and everyone knows everyone. So some guy was waiting at the store for me to just show up at the store, and he came out to talk to me. And what he was saying was he was one of the guys in the helicopter that went out hunting these things. He told me where to go to find the spent .308 rounds. He told me that 1 or 2 always get away. And he said that each state had their own group of guys that does this because they know the area and they can blend. You can get them in there quick, you know. Yep. And he didn't want to
really.
Yeah,
you know, I think they mixed it up too. You know, some states might have like, okay, we've got a special Green Beret unit, or one state might have like a SWAT team that's, you know, like their stars team, you know, or, you know, really the easiest is all of these areas, a lot of them border national parks. Honestly, I think that's a secret operation of the national park.
They're subcontracted. Just like they subcontract cops. I had a contract to go to Monrovia, Africa, and you just signed a non-disclosure. Subcontractors, I guarantee you. And I mean, dark money.
Mostly ex-military, probably, right?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blackwater.
What's that, Miss V?
Tracy wants to know around what year that was.
2000. It was 2017.
Yeah. Same year I had mine. Go figure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know, my sighting was in the 90s, you know, at least one of them. And it's like, this has been going on for how many decades right under our noses in rural towns all across America, probably, you know, or anywhere that borders large natural areas, such as, you know, national parks, but also other protected habitats or, you know, coastal areas, mountainous regions, you know. Appalachia, look at that alone. It's probably full of a bunch of creepy stuff.
Right.
Well, I can tell you they're still around.
Yeah, so Pat, you did not really believe. Am I getting an echo, guys?
No.
You didn't believe in dogman. You were. I don't know if you were on the fence, but like you said earlier, you felt like you were on the. Maybe we were seeing something that was just a Bigfoot, or kind of like you said, maybe a bear, or Gary says son 3 years ago. Gary, I'm gonna get up with you, buddy. But you were kind of on the fence. But you went to the LBL. Give a little bit of the history of the LBL, why you were there, who you were there with, because I saw Bud in the chat too. Bud, you're welcome to jump on. I can send you a link if you want to say yay or nay in the comments. And so you were not expecting what you found, and we want to talk about how it changed you. But when you get to the point where you're ready for me to play this video, I really want to see Lopez's reaction to it.
Sure. Okay. It's a little bit to swallow. In March, there was a group of us. It would have been BF Bud in the chat, Joe, myself. I am getting an echo now for some reason.
Better?
It was, yes, it's fine. It's a Steven that usually camps where we were camping this weekend, his wife, and our friend Jody. And actually, Miss V, you were invited, and Flat Rock couldn't make it, but you were invited and you couldn't make it. But what we did is we were going to go to a small meet and greet at LBL that we were invited to, and we were going with Bud and Angie, and we had gotten halfway there. We had heard that there was severe storms rolling in. So, usually they blow over the spring of the year or go different ways or fizzle out. Well, this one continued to build, and it was a big front that was coming in. And we got about halfway there into Memphis. We got a phone call that the meet and greet was canceled. So we wanted to know, hey, do we need to turn around and just go ahead and cancel, or do we want to continue? Well, everybody wanted to continue. They wanted to go. So we said, all right, we're in, we're going. So what we had done is we had previously had rented a cabin. So we didn't have to worry too much about the weather outside. But the severe storms were coming in, and we were going to have to try and beat this. So when we got there, we had seen there had been a lot of flash flooding en route there in Mississippi and in different areas. The water was still standing. Some of the rivers were overflowing still. So a lot of torrential rains all down through, all the way from Louisiana all the way to LBL. So when we got there, it wasn't raining. Bud and Angie were going to be arriving later that night. We had went out to some different places and checked out some things. I went to a couple of the campgrounds and walked the beaches to see if we could see anything, and just hung out. Later that evening, the storm started. Bud and Angie were going to be coming in about midnight. They had called and said that they couldn't get through. So what we did is we drove up the road, and Joe had some equipment there, and Bud and Joe kind of basically cut the tree out of the way, so they were able to wedge their car through there, and so we could all get to the cabin. Otherwise, we're going to have to go 20 miles around in order to get to us.
Yeah, what a pain.
Yeah, exactly. The trees were cracking. They were predicting severe storms, 100 mile an hour winds. We even got some of that wind damage and that weather here as well. And softball size hail. We had all taken our vehicles. This was on Friday night. We had all taken our vehicles, and we had put them under awnings and different locations, anywhere that we could find a place to put our vehicles, to try and protect them from the hail damage that they were predicting. So this was on. So we stayed in that night. We had gone out a little bit, but we had stayed in pretty much. The next night on Saturday, this was going to be our last day there. It had been raining off and on. We had decided to, we caught a break in the weather. We had decided to go eat. And we had all come back to the cabin, and we wanted to go out and use our thermals. A few of us had some. We had actually a new thermal we had only had for a couple months, and Bud was interested in looking at it. He was considering, interested in maybe purchasing one, because he got to look at it just a little bit. So we decided it was like the night before was a full moon. I did find out that, like I said, severe weather. And it was also a lunar eclipse as well. when I looked back on it. So that I found that a little bit interesting. I'm not going to put a lot into it, but it's kind of unusual. And like I said, the weather had let up a little bit, so we decided to take our thermals out and play with them. There's 2 vehicles, 3. It was Joe, Bud, and myself. I was behind Joe. He was driving, and Bud and I were trading back and forth with our thermal that we had. The other truck, it stayed a little bit further behind. It was picking up on some heat signatures. We had seen, we had there was a break in the weather, so we were able to get out, and we started seeing a lot of wildlife. We saw a lot of deer, owls, and different things. It was high humidity in the area, and Bud was having trouble with his thermal working. So, like I said, we traded back and forth with ours that we had. It seemed to be penetrating through some of the humidity and some of the fog that was in different areas. And there was a creek running down through there too, which helped contribute to some of the moisture in the air. And we had even seen a coyote hunt. There was like 4 of them, and we could see that they were honing in on a deer there. About a mile down the road from where we had seen the coyotes, we were going around the different bends, in the back roads and things. And we come around a bend, and I happened to have the thermal at that time right behind Joe. And I saw it ahead. I had my camera angled a little bit ahead where I could see what was going on. And I honed in on a vertical large signature. It actually, if I remember, it was kind of like 2. I wish we had hit the record button so we were able to see that. Now, the thermal had Wi-Fi capabilities, so Bud and Joe were able to actually see what I saw through the lens, which made it great. They also saw the heat signature. I said, I've got something, guys. And so we honed in on that. Joe sped up a little bit. It was just a matter of maybe, I don't even think it was a quarter of a mile. And it was moving as well. And we all saw it moving. We pulled up to it, and right across from it, we saw what we saw something. It seemed to be turned sideways. It was moving its head back and forth. We were on the road there. It's just a small, like I said, back road there. And there was like a small corn patch right in that area, because what it is there was a creek there. So there was cornfields all in the area anyway. And then there was a wooded area, and this is where we saw the heat signatures, right behind the wooded area. And what we had soon learned, right at that wooden area there, it was a creek, and it was the deep creeks. It was probably
like the kind you could roll your car over.
Probably. It had the big rocks in it. It was probably maybe 7 feet deep, or put it this way: when Bud stepped down into the creek, that's how deep it was. And I would almost call that
a tiny river or something.
Right. It could probably possibly be. But right behind that as well, we found later on that it was also, there's some wooded area, and there was also cornfields there. But we had stopped and pulled up on it. And at that time, we saw something, and I knew we were onto something, because you could almost see like the hump back behind the head. and different things like that. You could see it turn sideways, and you could see the movement. And
you said we have this footage?
Yes, we have the footage. But as we come up on it, and I'll lead up to it, as we come up on it, and it was moving, I asked Joe to hit it. Like I said, he hit record immediately. He controlled things for it, so I wouldn't have to touch it. And be distracted, and that's when you lose them. But I knew we had something, so I had him hit record, and at that time we turned. It turned, and it squared up at us. And you can go ahead and play the first one if you can, Miss V.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take me
play
and
them
Don
all or
off.
whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take me and Don off, so it'll be you and Lopez, so you can
Sure. But at that time, it was hiding from us. Excuse my language, please. Okay. I left it raw.
Excuse the audience. I'm getting all up in here so I can see it really clearly.
Okay. Okay, it stopped. Whatever it is, it stopped. I see it turning its head or whatever.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, look. What the fuck is that?
Sorry, guys.
What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Zoom in.
I mean, it's certainly humanoid.
Hey, I'm being recorded and I'm cussing. What is that?
This is all thermal, so.
What is that? Okay, back it back out. Back it. Back it back out. Back it out. Back me out, back out. Okay, this thing is watching us. It's looking at me.
So as you see that it squared up at us and pretty much let us know that, come on over. Go ahead and come on over. This is where it is hiding from Bud. Bud had stepped out of the vehicle and it turned and it was hiding from Bud. And if you'll see the eye glow, it's not eye shine. And it is looking at Bud, and you can see something on its abdomen. That's a heat signature of some kind. And it will turn its back to us as well. We have 16 minutes, over 16 minutes of thermal that we were able to capture.
Got it.
Oh,
yes, it is. That's it.
Look closely because you'll see one in front of the subject and one behind the subject.
Okay.
You will see them move. There is three. We count three. And one goes above.
No, it's still there.
I don't know what I'm seeing at this point. I'm basically in shock. And we see pretty much a smaller one, a larger one, and maybe even another one walk away. So we know there's at least three, if not more. So it was not alone.
Could even be a family.
Yes, that's what it appears to be. I can't speculate what it was doing. I'm not going to try to. I think it was on the move. We think it was on the move. It possibly was a family unit, and well, like I said, due to the weather, and like I said, it was extreme severe torrential downpours there. and there was a creek. I do not know how much was in the creek and how full it was, but whatever it was trying to, it moved in very slow increments. These are still shots that
Yeah,
we're able
definitely.
to take. And this is another still shot. They're not filtered. We were going to have everything stabilized and what have you, and we didn't like it. It seemed to take pixelate, and it took away. So we chose to leave everything raw, everything, and
That's good.
leave it the way it is, even with my mouth.
Do you know of the theory of, I guess you'd call it, some people call it like a uh, feral theory, or the cave system of America?
Well, possibly this is at LBL. So there is caves there, and there's reports of bunkers. There's reports of all kinds of different things. There's been books written on it and everything else. I never really got into the LBL thing because I didn't believe in dogman. So I didn't fall into that trap. I was Sasquatch. I was Bigfoot 100%. I am a Bigfoot witness. I've experienced one at Falk, Arkansas. So this looked nothing like that.
I was going to say, you can tell the difference that one's not the other, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Can you tell the difference?
Lopez, how did that make you feel when you saw that still shot?
Yes.
It definitely made me feel like the idea of that family unit cohesion is a definite possibility. I mean, that certainly,
sure,
from especially the final few stills, you could already see it kind of had like a feminine kind of build, where the other kind of dogmen that I've seen images of, or even my own personal encounter, were certainly more of a masculine form. That one certainly differed. So,
sure,
kind of looking at that, we're clearly seeing a dimorphic species, that clearly can breed or interbreed, and that's why, when you look at things like, you said your experience with Bigfoot, we look around the world, and there's all these tales of, the skunk ape, the yeti, the Bigfoot,
right,
etc. The thing is that, a lot of people never really think of the idea of that. What if they are all different species or races? You know how we have like different people or different races within the human race? Maybe these are all just different variants of like Bigfoot, adapting to different climates they might live in, or, I mean, I think that's definitely a real
right.
possibility. But the thing is that, do you think that there could be a relation, or even possibly a rivalry or war, like a shadow war between possibly Bigfoots and dogmen? And I don't think they like each other.
Well, that's what I've heard. This is speculation.
Of course.
Where I sit on the fence here, and where I come into it is, I'm strictly evidence. Is all I can do is I was willing to share what we experienced, regardless of the ridicule. I don't care, and to show you what we found, so you can decide from there. And I base everything on what I'm visually able to see, because we can say that they're doing this, they're doing that. We don't know that. What I am doing right now, though, is the behavior of, I have 16 minutes to work with, which is wonderful.
It's squared off. It's squared off
squared
with
up
you
at me.
guys
It's
when
squared up
you
at
realize
us.
you've seen it.
Yes.
But Lopez, do you think human, dogman, Bigfoot, or other when you seen it?
Right.
I think the dogmans a strong possibility. I still am also thinking feral could be a possibility because I could easily see very large, slender women that live in caves and breed nonstop. You get, say, an 8 foot tall mutation of a woman that over years of interbreeding or mutations, and then say if they hunt wild animals, they're clearly going to be wearing bones or skins or hides. So there's a chance maybe this was like a den mother, and she could be wearing, like, say, a wolf skull and a pelt, and maybe even like a wolf head or something. But there's just something about, if that was the case, it seems like there would be a slightly different setting, or maybe the behavior would have been different. This seems almost more animalistic to me, which is why I'm leaning more to the dogman out of the two that strike me as true.
Yeah, I think the heat signatures would have been different if it had coverings over its head.
Yeah.
But I think I noticed the hands were a lot colder than the rest of the body. Did you notice that, Pat?
I tell you what I did notice, if you'll, which I would love for you to study the stills, especially the first one, the hands are very long. The hair is pointed on the hands. It looks like it holds it up in at 3. It looks like something from, it looks like a Grinch. The Grinch hand is what it looks like.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
It looks like the Grinch hand there. The reason that I wanted to bring this forward and this evidence forward is I want to look at this strictly as evidence. I want people to decide for themselves what this is, what they get out of it, what they see. And my interest is, at this point, is studying the behavior. It squared up at us. It said it could have easily taken us out if it wanted to, because we did go back and we did do some recon on it. And Joe and Bud are both 6'2". Ooh.
You said there was no vocalization?
Oh, yuck. Ooh, you're creepy.
My cat just... Yeah, my cat just brought me a tick.
Brought him a tick. Oh, yeah. God. I just come from that. But
so it would turn and face off at you if it was protecting the family unit.
Well, yes, and if it was basically wanting us to focus on it.
Well, think about it. Mothers in the wild, if she's got a couple little ones with her,
if you look at the heat signature, if you look at the heat signature, you might be able to see something in that. That is my personal belief. There's others that have that belief as well. I really don't want to focus on that too much. It's the big catch.
You're talking about the big glowing spot on the chest, right?
Yeah, I look in the chest area. When I was looking through the thermal, my feelings is I am the only line of sight for the other people that's in the vehicle. Joe never put the vehicle in park. He had his foot on the brake, and the vehicle was running the entire time. This went on for, it was probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes tops that we were there. We chose to leave because we felt it was time to go. It did not leave. We left, and it followed us. It paralleled us out of there.
Oh, it made it you left.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, one thing that I see as a common denominator, they seem to come out during storms, around storms, or after storms.
Yes.
Even with Mr. Poole's encounter, there was a heavy fog there that would tell you there was moisture on hot earth.
Definitely.
Someone said, "Did you hear them growl?" But you guys were inside of a truck.
The windows were down. No, the truck was running. We didn't hear anything. We even tried to light it up with a flashlight, and there was no eye shine. None of that. Like I said, the only line of sight, and I had to muster up. I had to try and comprehend what I was looking at. At the same time, I was documenting as I was speaking on what I was seeing. I had a better line of sight than they did, even though they were looking at it on the phone. But I'm looking at it through the lens, and the lens is and it's actually a rifle scope. The thermal is. And you can put that on a rifle. It's dual, it has dual purpose. So it looked at me with that. It focused on me at that time, and I'll tell you, it looked down into my soul is what it did. Straight down into my soul. But it did not show aggression. But Bud did get out of the truck. There was slow movements, slow increments. It put its hand up over its face, trying to block that at points and times. Everything was very calculated. Everything was very slow, and it moved like this. And then it would change positions and even move back. Everything that you had to really, really look, even frame by frame, in order to see these movements. We did not see a tail. You see pretty much what I see. I just might have had a little bit clearer view. I did see ears, periodically, but I wasn't sure because my mind is thinking Sasquatch. I did see breasts. I kept saying, I said breast. I see breasts in the film, in the video. Like I said, we left everything raw for you all to see and experience as well as we did. And we showed it at camp for several of our peers to see. And we didn't want to sway their decision on what they saw. We wanted to hear from them. We wanted them to experience what we saw. That was the main thing. It did see the thermal. It did see what we were looking at. Like I said, the other thermals couldn't even penetrate into the humidity that was there. And we did have, and like I said, Bud did step out of the truck, and he walked around with the thermal. It hid from him. It showed intelligence. It hid from him and stood sideways. As you could see the orbits in the eyes right there, the eye sockets, that it was looking at Bud. At different periods, it opened its mouth a little bit. But it had that bow on the back of its head, which was part of like a mane that come around.
I always said mine had a mane or a hump, because I saw what I saw at night.
It had a hump. You can definitely see the hump in the beginning of the film and during the film. And it.
Pat.
Tracy said, I think my son saw a dogman at Fort Bragg during boot camp. He had some kind of breakdown that doesn't want to talk about it. You got to
talk about it. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, I would love to hear about that, Tracy. But I saw one off the Cape Fear. He saw one off the Cape Fear. Mr. Poole saw one off the Cape Fear. They are out there, and we're going to wait for Pat's audio or video to come back. The thing is,
yeah, I've been waiting to ask her a question, and right when I went to ask it,
I have two really quick questions.
Out there first, Don, throw your cat out there.
First of all, Pat, you said that there was no vocalization that occurred during your sighting. How about you guys? Did you guys? I know you said you heard howling and the lapping.
Well, they were talking to each other.
And what about you, Miss B? Do you
I had a growl from the wood line about 20 minutes before I saw mine, and it was so powerful. I'll tell you what it sounded like. It sounded like a jake brake. You ever seen it? Been by a semi and the jake brake goes off, and it kind of rattles you on the inside.
noise? Yeah.
But
That
I could
loud
also, like, I could feel a heat hit me, and it was a rattle.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, shit. And I would not look up in that wood line, because whatever was in that wood line, I did not want to make eye contact with it. And I backed up to my truck, and I actually left the area, but I got down the area, and I'm like, oh, hell no. I mean, I'm alpha dog here. I wasn't even thinking dogman, but I was like, no, I'm alpha here. That's my cul-de-sac. And I went back, and I was out there drinking coffee, smoking a cigarette, and across the road in front of me. And I tell people, because I had been attacked by a Cane Corso Shepherd mix, so I was looking at the mouth where that's the danger zone. But like Pat said, it either had a mane or it had a hump, because it was like black on black, because this was like at 2 something in the morning, and it was off Rockfish Creek, right when Rockfish Creek hits Cape Fear. I was about less than a mile from the river. And so I was looking at that mouth, and that's the danger zone. But I have always said, it appeared, when it crossed that road, it appeared to want to act normal. And it was on all four. Don, go ahead. This might be Pat.
Yeah, it's I haven't, even with the Sasquatch around here, I haven't come across any aggression at all, even with these creatures. And
yeah,
I know the only.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, some people say, that the Sasquatches or the Bigfoots can be either nasty or nice, versus where many of the dogman accounts seem to be just nasty. Do you think that dogmen can be nice, or that maybe also? Well, I guess I should first ask: do you believe in both, or are we just mistaking one variance of one creature and many different varieties of that one creature? Do you think they're different?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think they both can be aggressive or just not care about you. I don't think they're being nice. I think they just want to get. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. If I push the issue and try to follow or any of that, I'll get a little growl. But it's nothing crazy. It's just I always do the same thing. I hold up my hands and go, all right, all right, all right. And I'll turn around and go back. But I've never had anything crazy happen. Now, a guy I met up here, he was hunting with his buddy or brother, and they were on the power lines, and they had tree stands maybe about 400 or 500 feet apart on power lines. And it's getting dark out, the sun's going down, and they can hear what one guy said sounded like horses coming through the woods. And the woods are pretty dark at this point. So while he's sitting there, he can hear them right in front of him. And then he starts seeing eyes everywhere down low. And he got a flashlight and he shined it across, and he could see all these eyes looking at him. And then they noticed 2 way up in the air. So, and he said the eyes were different. They gave a different shine altogether. What he thought he saw was 2 werewolves with a pack of wolves. And then the other guy saw the same thing, and they both took off running to the vehicle and didn't say anything to the other guy, but they met up on the trail running back to their car. But yeah, so he said that he thinks they hang out with regular wolves.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Pat, I did have one question. Is there any ancient structures around there, burial grounds, or?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are.
I'm back.
Okay.
There probably is. There's cemeteries all over in the area.
Okay. A little echo, Miss V.
I hear feedback.
Better?
Yeah, sorry.
I want to say this right quick. Tracy, I don't know if you guys caught that, but her son was training on Fort Bragg, and he saw a dog man completely shut down, won't talk about it. My filter is off, so my this is what I really look like, y'all, without the filter. Tracy, I hope that you showed this podcast to your son. Maybe it'll help him because other people have seen it. Remember to tell your son he survived it. He's still here. If it wanted to go after him, it would have.
Yes.
Should have him talk to someone who's had an experience.
Yeah. So Tracy, make sure if he wants to reach out to anybody here and talk to him, we're here,
right.
or just share the show with them. But I'm sorry, Pat. Go ahead.
Well, oh my goodness, I've lost my train of thought. But the thing is that's the thing. You for one, and there's been several others. What if I don't get anything else out of this? What the one thing that we got out of it, and people got, if one person can get something out of this, put it this way, validation. I have been told that, and because some of them it's exactly what they saw. They were called hoaxers. The movements, not all Sasquatch move the same. Not we don't know what these things do, and if this film helps validate and helps one person, that's all that matters to me. And then we've done it. We've succeeded. And that's what's important, is helping one another. This community needs to come together. And
yeah, I don't get what the whole infighting. I've never understood the whole, I believe in Sasquatch, but you can't believe in dogmen, or dogmen people that are like, it's only dogmen. You can't believe in Bigfoot. Like, it's just so silly. Like, why not be?
Well, we're not children.
A lot of it, I think, is because they can't explain the dogman.
Exactly.
You can explain a Bigfoot primate, but where does the dogman fall into?
Right.
Yeah, but half those guys that do talk about, Bigfoot theory or Sasquatch theory, a lot of the time they start going off into the woo-woo. They start going off into like, they can turn invisible, or they can, astrally travel. They can step sideways into the umbra. They can, like, they start attributing all these like high fantasy or science fiction style attributes to them, although they try to rely on the basis that, it's just a missing link. And clearly, if they do exist, there's more than just that, because if it was just a big dumb monkey running around, we would have caught one at some point,
Well, we can't say what they can do. I can only bring forth, and I only know what I have experienced. Somebody else might experience something else. I'm not. A lot of this is all connected. If they're more cryptid, you need to believe in all of the cryptids now, because I've seen two different ones.
Or at least be open to it. It's funny. I designed a David Paulides card, and it has one of each of the cards of magic color, and for each one, I have a different cryptid that he can summon. So it's got like, the alien. It's got the Bigfoot. It's got the, the dogman. It's got the. I think I've got like a Jersey Devil in there, and then I've got like a ghost or something. So it's like, all the bases we can cover with the cryptid stuff, but obviously some of them are going to hold more weight than others. And I think that we're getting to the point now that there's so much evidence, thankfully, like what you're sharing, that can show the world that, hey, you can't dismiss it. You can't, even if you don't believe it, you can't dismiss it so easily.
Exactly. And like I said, I can only share and know what I personally experienced. Somebody else might experience something else. I don't know. But like I said, I don't know if there's a goat man or an owl man or whatever. But
Mothman.
I can't rule any of that out at this
That's
point.
what I like to say. That's what I say.
I can't rule anything out anymore. If you believe in one cryptid, you got to believe in there's possibly all of them.
A great way to put it, that there's possibly something else.
Right. And whatever this was did not show aggression. I believe that we believe, a few of us believe, and several believe it's a family unit moving through. Like I said, there was severe storms. There was a break in the weather. There was animals out feeding. It was clear to me that there was, and others, that there was young. I don't know if they hunt with young or whatever. I'm not going to try and make that decision. I'm not even going to discuss that, is because that's all assumption. And then that's when you get into the storytelling. I'm basically all facts. And that's how I want to present all this, is straight up facts.
What do you guys think of the 3 links? The all bodies of water, granite, and
yeah, exactly.
And of course the third one, weather. Like, do you think they can influence the weather, or that they take advantage of it because they can sense it in advance?
All predators gather food before a storm, from fish all the way up to the top predators. I don't know if it's something in there, something in genetic that they know that storms could last a while. I had an old cat that used to do it. Right before a storm, he would take off into the woods, and I would never see him until the storm was over.
Wow.
But the fish do it. Right. Fish, it's called fishing the front. When a storm comes in, fish go nuts. They don't kill to eat. They just kill to kill. I don't know if they're storing food for the storm or what it is.
Even dogs, or cats, most pets can sense things like earthquakes or storms or hurricanes before they come. So clearly, if these are animal-like humanoids that we're dealing with, they likely have a stronger tie to that instinct that animals have than we as humans have dulled ourselves to.
Well, another thing too is it's not necessarily hunting during severe weather and storms. It's just a common fact that you have like low pressure and you have birthing involved as well, which with animals, and that can possibly come into play with a lot of things with storms. So it's not just one thing.
The moon as well, it affects the tides. It affects people's behavior. So, I mean, clearly, again, with animals, we see sometimes, during full moon, there's different activity amongst. I mean, that's why we see a record every time there's a full moon. That's usually the night that there's the most 911 calls, for a reason.
Sure, and births as well. But my main thing is what is very important when I go on any podcast that I personally want to say is we all have different beliefs, and we all need to respect those beliefs and try and work together. It's okay to disagree. We can agree to disagree. And that's what's important, is maybe we might find out what's going on here. And like I said, I'm not here to defend or to try and convince anybody of anything. If it's a dog woman, if there's a baby with it, if there is babies walking with it, if there's a bigger one, it does appear on the last film that you had clip that you had shown that there is one pretty good sized, and there was people that did pick up in the film that there was a bigger one. And and I basically kind of conducted a survey as well when I was camping and people were wanting to see this film, and I brought them into my camper individually and without trying to do the red circle. I'm not doing any of that. And I'm not trying to sway them in any direction on what I thought it was or what I see. I wanted them to get their own experience. And people are smart. None of us are experts. And these people in these podcasts, they want to tell us what to think and what to see. I'm part of the chat. We are smart enough to make that decision on our own. We walk and talk. We dial in to watch people. We do not need to be told what to see. We have our own, we can make our own decisions. We are smart enough to do that.
Pat, you've actually got a little bit of negative feedback. We won't go into it, but I don't understand why.
Oh, I'm going to, and I don't care.
I have a quick question for Pat. While you were watching him on the infrared, did anybody else scan behind you and around you?
No, they couldn't because none of the thermals would work. There was
okay.
What the vehicle behind us, the three people behind. Eventually, the truck pulled up behind us, and they sat there in their vehicle, pretty much not knowing what's going on, and their thermals could not penetrate into that humidity. It just happened to be
like a little bit of static or interference because of the moisture. Moisture.
Well, you got the moisture in the air, and there appeared to be a little bit of fog too. So, there was whatever it was. It had an opportunity to flee. There was an out for this creature, and it chose not to take it. It chose to stand there. I personally didn't feel threatened. I did reach my elbow around, and I did lock the door. The window was open, like it was going to do me a lot of good, huh? But Joseph, I had two men in the truck that I felt very safe with, that helped to get me through this. So that was a plus in my favor, that I was able to focus on the creature.
Sorry, that red spot. You think it could possibly have been like the creature's heart or a central organ that, some creatures run especially hot, especially if you're like something that can move that quickly with that level of metabolism would probably have a very fiery heart, if you're thinking about it.
Well, this was awful big to be a heart. This pretty much covered the whole abdomen. So that does show heat in the area.
Have you tried to recreate it with like a dog? Someone lift a dog up on his hind legs and look at it through?
No, we actually did go back. We've tried around the river here, around the house and things like that. I can't get Joe to pick up the stray cat because we don't have any animals to see in the neighborhood to kind of do any kind of comparison. Or maybe he could pick up the gator. I don't know. He won't do it. But
so let's go back to Jean's comment, because she was actually. I'm gonna put this out there, because this kind of goes back to and we have a good community, don't get me wrong, but you know what, be careful who you let in your circle, and when you meet good people in a community that you can have these conversations with, you keep them close to you, because families can have disagreements. And they can have different views, but they're still going to respect and support each other. But it's like Jean said, she was told by a podcast person not to let the door hit her on the way out because he didn't like the truth that she told. Well, Pat, when you got your video, the people that you actually thought would embrace and support you, some did not, and you actually lost a friend over it. So I don't understand how you get such good quality videos where people should be celebrating that, but you've had negative feedback on that. I mean, how does
Right.
that, as someone that presents something that's probably one of the best videos I've seen? It's one of the best. I told you from the get-go, the first time I seen it, I said that looks dog or canine-like, because I call it a canine cryptid. But
Sure.
I said that looks canine-like, and I think maybe in your mind you still wanted to believe it was a Bigfoot, but you had some negative feedback on that, and it's okay, but it seems like some people just didn't like how you wanted to protect it until you could absorb it, or you want to kind of go into that and say your part in that?
Sure. Well, I'm going to tell you, Jean, I totally agree with you, and I sympathize. I feel you there. Joe kind of wanted to personally keep it to himself. I wanted to show it to my peers. I wanted to show it to my small community of peers. Because what it was is some of them can't get out. Some of them are too old to be able to go out, or not able physically to go out, or have no one to go out with, or don't know where to go. And I wanted to share that with them, and because they're in the chats day in and day out, they know about this stuff probably better than the ones that even go out, or the podcasters in general. But I wanted to share it with those people, to have that experience, and to try and also learn for it and be a part of the group and fit and be a part of that, even though they don't go out and they don't research. I'm 69 years old. I don't know how much longer I have to be able to go out and do this myself personally, but I would sure love for somebody to share that. But what I did not expect is, I did expect a little bit of pullback from a bigger community of people that I didn't even know, is pretty much, I didn't expect it in my small group. In the very beginning, it was kind of a little bit hurtful, but I've kind of got past that, and hey, that's life. That's the way it is. I'm, like I said, I'm not going to defend or try and convince anybody of anything.
Yeah, you're just showing them. You're literally just showing evidence of what you saw, and then they can draw their own conclusions.
Well,
I don't know how anybody could be nasty to you for doing that. Because you're literally just like, here, look at this. What do you think? Like,
it happens, and that, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
Everybody to experience what I experience. I want them, if I have to pave the way forward to for anybody else that gets any kind of evidence in the future, because there's other generations. I'd like to be able to pass this down to another generation. I'm 60, and like I said, a lot of us are in our 60s. We need somebody to go ahead and just, carry the torch. And the thing is I don't worry about, I'm just in the beginning stages of presenting this right now, and I'm going to have a lot of pushback, and it's okay. It's okay. It's not my problem. It's none of my business.
So Pat, Brian says, Pat, do you think the initial people wanted to discredit you because they wanted to be the first to have groundbreaking evidence and not you? I mean, that's a valid question.
Yes, I think so, maybe. There's a lot of egos and things like that, just in anything that you do. It doesn't, in sports, whatever you do, you're going to have that.
Pat,
they will try and discredit. Yeah.
These people that discredited you were, are they dogman researchers?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't think they are.
Okay.
I don't know. I really can't even answer that. And like I said, walk in somebody's shoes that's just like the jeans and things like that. I'm speaking for those people. Mm-hmm. She has the guts to come out and say right now, this, don't believe me. The ones that have had experiences and called hoaxers, you've got Johnny here right now that, he's had a little pushback. You're tough, Johnny. Hang in there. You'll be okay. And that's okay. I walk right with you. There's several of us, and let's all come together and see what we can find out, because it looks to me, from what I can see, and what I have presented to you, there's a breeding pair somewhere. And
oh yeah,
and like I said, this come out of the LBL, and I show the proof.
What's your thoughts on Dogman now?
Oh,
or the canine?
Well, it took me. Let me tell you what, Miss B. It took me a month. It took me a month arguing with Joe. I argued with Joe. No, it isn't. No, there's no way. That's not a dog. Well, it is to me right now. It is a dog man. This is my personal belief. I'm not going to sway anybody, and that's it.
So, I like Johnny, Me Doc Bigfoot. You guys go subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's a free thinker.
Thank you, Billy.
I have a lot of respect for Johnny. He had a Class A sighting. My cat's in my face, so I'm fixing to cough up cat hair. So, Lopez, is there anything you want to add? If you guys got any questions, we've been going on for about 2 hours. We can go further, but if you guys have some questions, let's start getting them out there. So Lopez, is there anything about what we've talked about tonight that you want to? My cat just took out my computer.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to, kind of a clear, or not a clear answer, because obviously some of this is somewhat agnostic, but do you, I guess all three of you, I'll give you my answer first, but all three of you, what do each of you believe individually that there's some kind of primate, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever? Two, do you believe in dogmen? And then C, do you believe that that's all that there possibly is in this little cryptozoology that we're discussing? Go in any order,
I'll just say yes, no. I believe in Bigfoot. I believe in Dogman, and I know there's more out there. There was a creature in the Northeast, which I am pretty convinced it was the Wendigo. It went all the way down to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. That's what the Jersey Devil was.
That's not far from where I see. I actually had somebody on a forum tell me that same theory. They thought the Jersey Devil was a form of Wendigo.
Yeah.
How interesting.
Because I've talked to people who had 3 different sightings. They all said hoofed, rear feet are hoofed, front feet are pawed, and they look like a cross between a horse and a goat, and they walk on their hind legs. But one thing that was in common with all these stories is they said it had patches of fur rotting off of its chest, and it stunk. Now go look up pictures of the Wendigo. It always shows it missing sections of its chest. Old pictures. Not newer pictures, the older ones.
I actually in my game, I have a Wendigo that I've designed, and it very much is like a flying kind of corpse skeletal, but yes, its chest is open and kind of missing,
right.
And its insides are kind of hanging as tatters, usually where its legs are. And then some people have told me there's a variant that doesn't have even like a lower half. It's just like the remains are just hanging, almost like a spirit almost.
That's what it turned into, a spirit.
Right.
But Native American will tell you they were cannibalistic. They would eat you. In every story that I heard, the creature was going after somebody, and they shot and killed it.
Mm.
So
Well, I haven't seen one of those yet. So
now, according to
I don't want to see one either.
These all happened in the 70s. Since then, and in one of the encounters, the guy called the sheriff. The sheriff called the conservation or whoever came to pick it up. They brought a U-Haul, and the first thing they said when they looked at it was, "These things aren't supposed to exist anymore."
Oh,
so yeah, and it was pure.
Some of these cryptids, maybe these alphabet agencies have just hunted the shit out of them until there's literally just like 3 in America hiding in the most remote parts of the forest or cave systems.
Yeah.
Well, I've yet to see any of the alphabet agencies yet, and I don't really care at this point.
Just hide.
I'm too old to worry about it.
Yeah, just hide a flash drive of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I know how to take care of things.
Yeah.
But it does seem that there are more and more and more sightings, and people are starting to come forward now. Like Joe said to me, is there an uptick on these creatures coming about?
The zeitgeist,
That's
people.
just one thing that we need to think about.
No, I think you're very right on that, because you know how there's the whole theory of they've got the government slowly releases information, because if they just told you, everyone would freak out. Say if the government today just literally put a dogman on the TV, what do you think people would do? They would freak out, riot. They'd think it's the end of the world. They'd call it the Antichrist. They'd
it would open their minds.
Well, that's why I have presented this for everyone.
You give society too much credit. Lopez, your stories or poems and your game, that come from your childhood experience?
I certainly try to, and I've always been a designer of fantasy and a lover of horror, but that side of me had almost nothing to do with my experience, because I've always had a love for those things. And this was something that, as cool as it is to talk about now, I would never want to relive. And I live all day, in my head designing dungeons and adventures and monsters and stuff. And as I have to say, though, that it has darkened the fantasy within my mind, that no matter how lovely or cute or flowery I try to make a world, when you've seen some real evil in real life, it does change you as an artist, that there's always that little taint of darkness that you will, when someone's been touched by the shadow, or someone's looked into the abyss, it changes them forever, especially as a creator. So while I wouldn't say the influence that did not cause any of my down this path, it certainly gave me a unique lens to look at creating fiction through, due to the fears and the things that I have seen. Not just this experience, but like I said, there's many other weird things I've seen over the years. And honestly, that every day, your mind can just grow more and more open to what the possibilities can be lurking, in your very backyard.
Well, I've like I said, I have lived many years, and I have experienced darkness just by living, just day-to-day living. And it's the same thing, but this did change me. It did change me, and I'm still processing, actually. The only thing I can say is, please, buddy system, I won't be so quick, I don't think, to run off from Joe anymore. that where he's gotta
Right.
chase me down, and my little friend Jody that's under 5 foot, that she's my little gangster friend, that she runs off and Joe has to chase her down. I don't think I'm gonna run that far anymore. I think us girls in our group will stay a little bit closer.
Well, you can
And
see how it can go bad. I mean, what if someone jumped out of your car just to go to the bathroom and they ran right towards those creatures and didn't know they were there?
That would
well,
be
we
me because
pushed
I'm
it.
always got to pee.
Especially if it's a
Very
mother
true.
with, especially if it's a mother with a couple young, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, and I thoroughly believe that, and I thoroughly believe that, and that's the thing is, you know, keep our children close, because it's there. Whatever it is, it is there. I don't know if it's mystical. I don't know if it's animal, vegetable, mineral. I don't know what it is, but keep your children close and your
Now,
loved ones.
there was a question earlier I saw. I think it was Untamed. I'm not sure, but they were asking, do you think that they're natural or genetically created?
Like a super
I'm going to
soldier.
give my answer.
That's a great
Like a
question.
super soldier.
Okay, I got to say one thing, though. There is evidence of these creatures going back thousands of years. So
The thing is, imagine if we just captured one and then used its blood or organs, or even did like CRISPR technology to one and made our own versions or hybrids, or maybe they could breed. You know how like some species of dogs can breed with wolves. You know, what if they're so close to our genetics that they could interbreed with us, even though they are technically a different species completely? You know, there's definitely some possibilities there.
Right. Well, like I said, you know, it does go back in history about these, and and folklore. Don't forget the folklore as well. There is some truth to some of that folklore that we are seeing. So I don't know, but I do believe we have the capabilities now to genetically uh, duplicate these creatures, but I don't know what's going on now. You know, I'm just trying to process what I've just seen and share it with everyone.
yeah, I mean, I could see them genetically, you know, enhancing these creatures maybe 30, 40
Sure.
years ago, but the tech we have
Sure.
now, we don't need them for a war or
Right.
Which might be why we're seeing so many because they were turned loose. I mean,
right.
Oh, you never know.
Right.
Put your pets up. I
Right.
don't know. Like Joe said, put your pets up.
Do you think they live in dens underground? I do.
Yeah, I
Why
was
couldn't
literally
they?
that's kind of what I wanted to bring up as a big question to
Why
all of
couldn't they?
you right before we end. Is that I am a big I do have a theory. I will go into it. I do think that there may be even an the term is so dubious when people use the term inner Earth. They're trying to make it seem like there's this whole giant area that's like the size of the whole planet's hollow and bullshit. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. It
Good
could literally
point.
just be we look at the mantle of the Earth's crust. It's something like what 5 to 6 miles deep, or 10 to 15 miles deep, or something like that. And so we know that the cave systems. So not only are there cave systems that branch and connect all over the Earth, but there are what are called blue holes. Have you guys ever read about those?
Yeah. The water?
Like in tropical, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
The water.
So when we've mapped many of these blue holes, their cave systems are even crazier than the cave systems that we have, like under America. Like these blue holes
Sure.
go all over the world, and there's intelligent like squids and octopuses and stuff that live in it. All these aquatic creatures that live in these blue holes, and there's shit that lives down there that we're just discovering, or probably man has never seen before. So we've got this entire interconnected ecology underwater, as well as what essentially are cave systems. Now, in Dungeons and Dragons and other video games and fantasy, there's like a spell that's called Stone Shape or Shape Stone. There's also a spell called Pass Wall. Now, what that the first one allows you to do is to manipulate earth, stone. You can soften it so that you can manipulate it like mud, right? And when we look at a lot of these ancient cities, we're like, well, how did they lift these giant blocks and put them together? And they're like, okay, well, we've explained it for the pyramids, but there's like 20 other sites around the world, like Gobekli Tepe and whatever, that
Baalbek.
there's no way that they had technology on those areas that they could have built these things. So I've always wondered, there's got to have been some kind of technology or like a ritual or a spell. I don't know if it's science or magic or whatever, or maybe it's or spirituality, whatever. But there must be some way to either phase through these rocks or manipulate their shape that we have lost access to. Because and I think that's where the granite ties into. I think that maybe these granite pockets are entrances and exits to this inner earth of water and earth.
But
that
you
is
got quartz.
creating these labyrinths in the mantle.
Yeah, if you have a lot of granite above ground, you have much more below ground.
But Lopez, getting back to Fort Bragg, there is common knowledge there are tunnels under Fort Bragg, and it's also been reported that people have went into those tunnels to set up shoot rooms for special forces to train in, and there's granite levitating in there.
Wow.
Yes.
See, that's magnetic.
So Fort Bragg does have a tunnel system there.
And remember, there was just that big leak that just came out about 2 to 3 weeks ago, where the guy was on that other podcast and he came out and said that there are DUMBs, which we know are it's the acronym for
underground
military base, I believe. And I mean, those things are supposedly all over the U.S. So I mean, if we have as humans have already done that, and we know that there's possibly other races or species, maybe this is our version of like, establishing territory in this inner earth, versus where these other things, like I said, I don't know if it's a way that they could maybe like, say if it's a stone wall, what's more plausible, waving your hands around it and suddenly it melts down into mud and you can push it aside, or does it make more sense that they can do something to their bodies that allow them to temporarily kind of phase through the granite into like a set of tunnels, kind of like moving through it, like in some kind of vibration or something. Vibrations are what make up our entire universe. So if you can be at the same wavelength, your atoms as granite, and then you could theoretically walk right through the granite and then kind of restabilize on the other side. I'm just saying, it's an idea.
Well, I mean, I like that deep theory stuff, but hey, you've always been, a Bigfoot person from your own experiences, and you had a non-violent, non-aggressive experience.
Yes, Jean.
But actually, it reached its hand in her tent, Lopez. But and she just was like cute little puppy, swamp puppy thing. But that's Pat for you. But what do you think about the underground tunnels in relation to a cryptid? It could be any cryptid. I mean,
I'd love to hear all three of your opinions on that.
Do what?
I'd love to hear from all three of you on your ideas about DUMBs and any kind of inner earth idea, if it's possible, or if you've heard anything, or if this has sparked anything in your minds about that.
Well, and listen.
Well, how, what? I'm just trying to live day to day. And I used to worry about all of that, but, now and think about all that. But nowadays, as I've got older and retired, I'm just busy trying to enjoy life day to day and focus on positive, keep Joe in line, different things like that. Keep him in check. You know, go hunt my monsters that I've been looking for, that I've wanted to do for years, that my children are all grown up and they don't need me like they used to. And I can go out and be adventurous and find the answers I was looking for. And to stay positive, that's the key, is to stay positive. Get out there, breathe the fresh air. Don't worry about what's going on the other side of the hill. Focus what's right in front of you and love one another.
Good advice.
Happy Father's Day, everyone.
Yeah, and also,
Day. Thank you.
What I would like all of you to do, one thing that I would like to say is, on the one picture, the still picture that's dark, if you have a magnifying glass, pull it out and look at that picture, if you get a little time, and look at that and look at the arms and things like that, and try and look at the face. This picture haunts me, that I'm trying to see those eyes. You can see the mane. Anybody that would like to try and get some type of visual experience, look at it with a magnifying glass. There's a lot to see there and to learn. And hey, shoot me a message back, or when you see me, or if you see me in chat, shout out and say, hey, Pat, I saw this, or Pat, I saw this on that video. Do that, because I'm going to be sharing this, and I'm going to be on several podcasts here in the near future coming up, and holler at me. And I would also
send me a copy.
The video.
Or is there a website that you're hosting that on that people can find?
Oh no, go to the Dogman Project, the North American Dogman Project. There are clips there. I am keeping the video close to the vest, so we can share this properly, and try and keep from people misusing it as long as we can.
Is that the whole video that we saw tonight?
No.
There's a highlight reel, right?
No, there's 16 minutes of it, over 16 minutes of that film. Anybody that would like to see it privately, I'd be more than happy to, but I will not send it out. And like I said, the Dogman Project has that, but they won't share that as well. And they have permit. They're the only ones that. And when I send something out, this is all copyrighted, and it has watermarks on it. So, but like I said, try and reach out for help if you get something. It's hard to find help. We went through a lot, and if you can't, I can help maybe direct you, because I know what we went through. And Victoria herself and Pat Rance were big supporters in this.
I like that, John.
So, and that's really about it for me. Look at that picture. Pull that picture up later and go back and look at it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the TV. Make it bigger.
Yeah. It was very spooky. I definitely enjoyed the reveal, and I'm looking forward to digging a little deeper. I actually have a degree in.
Yes.
I'm one of the. Before it was cool, I got my degree in digital art and multimedia. Actually, way in the early days of Photoshop. I was taught by one of the first masters of Photoshop. Was actually one of my professors, and so over the years, I've gotten very good at looking for photo manipulation or things like that. So obviously, I give you the benefit of the doubt. It was amazing footage.
That's fine.
I definitely am so looking forward to digging a little deeper into the images, and perhaps I could glean some more, and we could revisit this.
Good, because this is the reason I left it all raw. even my mouth. I have
Good idea.
Bud and Angie
It lends credibility.
can tell Bud, Angie, and Joe can tell you that as soon as I witness something that kind of shocks me a little bit, the profanity that comes out of my mouth, they're going to stick a on when we go out.
Oh.
You know.
Yeah, that's normal though. I think that happens quite often.
I know, but they're holding it together. But it's always Pat. It's always Pat, and she's right in the line of sight. They got the camera right on me every time.
They're just waiting for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, did you notice the head was pretty large compared to the body?
When it was turned sideways, yes.
Yeah.
If you look at that hump there,
yeah.
That's very interesting, and it appeared, but like I said, both times when Bud stepped out of that truck, it tried to hide from Bud as well. But when he got back in the truck, it turned back around and faced us again. Isn't that odd? But he took a step off to go. He said he was going to try and go towards it. He was going to go towards it to see what it was, to try and flush it out. Thank God he wasn't able to. He had on slippers. He stepped in mud above his ankles. Thank goodness. We could not go back.
Be careful.
He stepped in mud over his ankles, and we had a severe storm a couple of hours later.
That is hilarious.
And we could not go out and even get near the area. It's so muddy, and plus we're 10 hours away from home. We did, like I said, recon that. We did the best we could. We do have shots of that. It is on the dog. If you look on North American Dogman Project website, .com, and on the YouTube, it shows those pictures. And you can see those readily.
When you said recon, did you go to the area where the creatures were? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes,
okay.
we did. We went to the area. We do have stills. We have daytime stills of the area. We also used our thermal from the truck to the area. We now the thing is, when we were there and filmed it and ran across the creature, there was no green on the trees. It was in the middle of March. We weren't able to get back due to the weather and 10 hours away, and Bud is over 6 hours away. There was severe storms this spring. We've had tremendous amount of rain, and when we went back, we went back April 17th, I think, is on the camera. We were there the 16th, but I think it's on the 17th as well. We did go back and do some nighttime thermal, some daytime thermal. We have daytime pics of the area. We are not on the exact target. We do not believe. It might be a couple feet off, only a couple feet now off. We believe maybe a couple yards.
What's your next plan for like a shoot like this, or a hunt, I guess you could say?
Oh, yeah. No, we don't usually hunt. We let them come to us.
No, just a term for it.
Well, actually, we're going. Right. We go back
a hunt
out.
For the truth.
We go back out for meet and greets and things like that. And I'm too old to chase them down. I prefer, just for them to come to us anyway. We don't run in the woods
special
anymore.
bait or a relationship with them, or do you divine when they're going to appear with a Sanitaro? Like, what's your secret of knowing where they're going to be, or how to attract them to you?
Well, that is my king here, Joe. He does all that kind of stuff. He's a map man. He loves the maps.
And most cryptids that I've heard about, they're all curious.
Yeah,
so,
very curious.
Yeah,
very curious. They come into us. That has been our main experience. And like I said, we do have plans to go back out to the LBO, yes, in the future. But we spend a lot of time in Alabama, and there's a lot of granite, and there's a lot of courts in Alabama, and it's on the 33rd parallel.
Oh yeah.
I guess is what they say, and that's exactly where we go to. We have had experiences there, but we've heard that there is dogman in that area, but I have experienced Sasquatch. I am assuming I didn't get a sighting, but we also go down to a private residence that everybody in the chat knows. We do go and we have a setup. We have a date with him every year, the same week, and we go every year to this man's property, and it never fails. It never lets us down.
I don't know how much the ecology has changed, but if you ever get a chance to explore the forests around Athens, Georgia, is another hot spot that I hear a lot about and that I have some experience with when I was young.
I heard that all in Georgia and North Georgia, and that's where Jody lives, and we're supposed to go up there and do a little sightseeing with her as well. We just like to get out with our friends and hang out, cook, eat good food, have great conversation,
just getting out and acting like a human. It usually brings them in.
Living life. Don't forget to live life. That's what we want to do, and that's what I want to stress. And to everybody in the chat that I saw this weekend, thank you for such a wonderful time. I had a great time seeing my friends. That's what it's all about.
And for the ones that don't know, LBL stands for lots of breeding lycanthrope.
Yeah, exactly.
Land between the lakes, right?
Yes, it is. And thank you, Miss B, for everything.
Oh yeah, thank you for your wonderful hosting.
Well, thank you so much. Lopez, I had a blast the last time you were on. I'm going to have more Dogman roundtables.
I'd love that.
Yes.
And you and Pat, and of course Don's the co-host. So give me, he's going to be there. You guys are always welcome to come in. If you know someone that has had a Dogman encounter and is willing to come on and share their thoughts or even their feelings on it, let me know, because I would love to have them on the round table, because it does need, that is what got me into the cryptid world. That's what got me into, the Bigfoot world. And back then you were just more accepted into the Bigfoot world than, I call it a canine cryptid because, I don't like Dogman. But
that's a good way to put it.
There's more, there needs to be more discussions on it, just honest, whether you agree with their temperament or your experience. People that have had positive experiences and people that have had negative experiences and feelings about it, we do need to get together and have social conversations about it, whether we agree with it or not. And I think that's what we need to do. So if you know anyone, or if anyone in chat knows anyone, I would love to have them just for a very laid back discussion like this. And Lopez, you were going to end us off with one of the poems that you wrote, but before we get there, let's go around the room. We'll go to Pat, then Don, then got your poem ready, Lopez, because you've authored many poems. Pat, is there anything you want to get out there in closing?
Thank you all for listening this weekend. Thank you for all participating. I did hold a survey, and I'll kind of let you know at the end a little bit. Or no, maybe I'll just go ahead and say it. Joe go, oh no, you're not going to do this, Pat. I kind of listened to what the folks had to say after viewing the film and what they thought it was. Most of the women believed that it was a dog woman, and she was holding the baby. And I'm in that camp as well. He's going, and then the men, most of a few believed that it was a Sasquatch, and this is on the men part, Michael Haywood, and they believed that they saw breasts. So that's how it went. That's
I
how
saw
it went.
breath.
Go
I saw
figure.
breath
Go
for
figure.
sure.
You know, so Joe's going, I hear him in the background.
How many breasts?
Haywood. Yeah.
See, that's what I was wondering.
Exactly.
Would a dog
So
woman
you
have
be the judge.
6
You
or 8
all
breaths?
go and look
Right.
and see for yourself and figure it out. That's all I'm going to say.
Getting
Okay.
some total recall flashbacks here.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
And Lopez, I didn't even tell you it was a possible female. That's something you picked up on your own.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
can figure that out for yourself.
I'm a gay man, so
Right.
I wasn't even looking through that lens, and I could tell those were tits. I'm sorry, they were definitely
Okay.
those were definitely breasts.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
All right. Thank you, Lopez. All right, Don, what you want to say in closing, buddy?
I just want to thank Blue Eyed Northern, Pat, and Lopez for sharing their stories and coming on the show. I really enjoyed this one, you know.
Did you?
And,
Yes.
You guys have all been very sweet.
Yeah, because I have a hard time talking about it. My roommate that was with me won't talk about it.
Really?
And he had a Sasquatch stand right up in front of him in the woods out here one night, and he won't talk about that either. It freaked him out.
Oh,
So,
wow. Maybe get him a little drunk or feed him smoke a joint with him. Maybe he'll loosen up a little bit, and that tongue will loosen up, you know.
He moved to a pretty good sized town around here, a city. So
He wanted to be
out of
safe.
the woods. Yeah.
He got spooks.
Right. But I did want to say
All
for
right,
everyone
all
to
right.
be diligent in checking for ticks.
All right, enough about joints and dog tits. All right, Lopez, close us with a poem, and then we're going to sign off, buddy. Love you,
All right.
Pat. Love you, Don.
Now, sorry. Yeah, this one is from the Moonlight collection of Halloween poetry. But like I said, I really am focused on getting. I did just publish my big RPG, which did come out last week, and the first official canonical adventure module, which is about 200 and something pages. It's about a year's worth of game to play. That will be out sometime this next week. So thank you for allowing me to plug that. And I will show you the cover of the Moonlight collection. If you can kind of see it at this angle. There we go. Here's a couple of our chapbooks. There's 6 of them on Amazon, but like I said, I will get to the poem right now. A little something spooky to end the night on. It's called The Maiden, the Mother, and the Crone. It's not too long, don't worry. Only play this game during the witching hour, neither after nor before, to uncover secrets from the 3 queens, those ghostly oracles of lore. Shroud in darkness an empty room, then gather swiftly 3 chairs. In 2 of the chairs place a mirror, beneath each place a key. In the triangle place the gathering chairs, forming a simple trine. In the middle place a circle of salt, and within that a goblet of wine. Now you must light a large candle and hold it tight in your lap. Ask for a sign and wait. You'll hear a knock, a bang, a clap. Now the seat you take atop the key will be that of the mother. The maiden and the crone face you angled from the sides of each other. As you speak, you will hear your words sounded in her voice. After your words, they will reply slowly and quietly offer a choice. Note that for every answer that you seek, you'll receive a bit of darkness for about a week. So ask too many questions when you inquire, and your future will be quite dark and very dire. Remember to end your query before the first bell, or the devil will take his due and drag you to hell. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a good one, buddy.
You too. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.